Hello, and welcome back to another horror movie marathon thinger. Now, for this one is probably one of my personal favorites. I grew up with this film in my house growing up, and it's a lot of freaky imagery, but now it's just truly laughable. And that is Freakshow with Gunnar Hansen, who probably best known for as Leatherface in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, and he actually puts up a good performance instead of just like grabbing the chainsaw and twirling it above his head, back and forth doing that like quasi-Egyptian head movement. You know what I mean? And here he plays the Freakmaster, and it's one of those anthology films, kind of like Creepshow, Tales from the Dark Side, which it's like many stories in one. I really like that. I like that. They're really kind of comic booky, very old school, just mini short stories that are meant to horrify. I like short stories, but the first story is really a premature baby demon thing that's really fucking disturbing when you're a little kid. But now, after my sister had a boy, Olix, and he was born like 3 days ago, so she shouldn't be reminded about this horrible movie. And that story's kind of weird. But like, it seems like each story is directed by a different person, which they are. Then the second story in itself is well, the story's told by the Freakmaster, which he shows exhibits, and the story goes on from there. And the second story is about a boy who is kind of like a wild child-looking thing, who is it's a very much a good werewolf story, and it really kind of adds to the werewolf mythology in pretty neat ways, I might say. In pretty cool ways to add to the werewolf mythology in there. It's kind of neat. Some of the acting is stiff, of course. This film is not selected on Gunnar Hansen's filmography. I don't know why. And the third story in here, I gotta say, is probably technically the best. Sip of coffee. The best story-wise. It's very much in the 19th century of very aristocratic, being fascinated by exotic places like Egypt, and beginning into mediums, or like that very snobbish that find the most novel of ideas back then. And it's about a mummy, and it's a really neat kind of story. And the professor who brings the mummy to one Madam's Hallows Eve party, and he tells a story that's very Lovecraftian, kind of like the Crawling Chaos, very, I don't want to say obscure Lovecraftian, but more so the more not as shined upon like the Cthulhu mythos stuff. This is more the old ancient creatures, very much kind of Yog Sothoth, but it's about like this guy being stuck in the dark of a pyramid for an unpredetermined time, and hearing voices, and like when the light comes up, when the other archaeologists find him, finally he's in a room full of mummies, and some of the mummies look like outstretched, about to grab him. It's very Lovecraftian, and I love that. Just how he tells it, and he has this great voice. And the fourth story is more so, it's probably, I don't want to say the weakest, but it's pretty up there. This and the first one are pretty the weakest. The two in the middle are the best. 2 and 3 are the best. But this one is very much a circus sideshow in itself story, and a body-switching deal. I don't want to spoil it, but the main character in that story is a real dick. And there's, of course, the fifth story, which is a story all along. It's when in the film there's the HUD, the HQ, and where the stories are told, and then that's the ending. It's very much like that. As the fifth story is the longest story of them all, the main story. If I'm saying a confusing way, I'm sorry. My confused tongue cannot give thought. But anything else I could say? No, it's a good film. Very obscure, very obscure. It's not as good as Tales from the Dark Side or Creepshow, or other ones I can think of on top of my head right now. So, yeah. give it a look.